Hi everyone, my name is Nitya and you are at my Flosstube channel, Daybreak Stitchery. This is a channel all about cross stitch and it is right down to the end of the month, which is when I usually make a video to just check in and show you what I've been stitching on all month. So hi, if you're back, welcome back. It's so good to kind of check in with you and see how you're doing and to talk cross stitch again with you. If you're new, which I suspect some of you might be because I know a lot of people are I'm going to StitchCon weekend A next week, and I know a lot of people are checking out Flosstubers who will be there. So if you're new here, welcome. For your benefit, I'm Nitya. I live in the Chicagoland area. I'm a French teacher. We're on break officially, thank goodness. High school French teacher. I teach all levels of, I run the program at my school. I love teaching. I love stitching. I stitch a lot. I'll show you a little bit. You'll get a good taste today. Today is almost going to be kind of whip parade-y a little bit because I've had my hands in all kinds of different projects this month, and 31 days is a lot of days of stitching. Oh, well, almost 31 days. I stitched almost every day this month. I don't really do like life update kind of things, but if you're new here, the basics are that I teach and that my family is me and my partner, Steve, and he's a Chicago historian and he runs a bike tour company, Chicago Bike Adventures. And we lead a pretty simple life. We love reading, we love movies, we love TV, we love our garden. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You'll find out more about me as this thing goes along. So welcome and welcome back. And I think we should just get started. I usually like to just get right going with stitching. So I actually have a finish to show you, and this was totally unexpected. I just kind of felt motivated to do something for Stitch Asia because May is Asian American Heritage Month. And I was just thinking back to last May and I have so many projects that are whips that I just need to chip away at. So I pulled this one out that I started last May. And you may or may not recognize this. So this is, I'm just calling it a Bharatnatyam sample. So Bharatnatyam is a form of dance in South India. It's a traditional dance in South India. And I found these motifs. Here, I'll just show you real quick close up here. These 6 dance poses, they all came from this book by Véronique Ingenge called Balades en Asie, which is Walks Through Asia or Walk Through Asia. And you all know, for those of you who are returning, you know that I talk a lot about cultural stitching. And I don't usually stitch, so even though my parents are from India, I don't usually stitch India stuff. I'm not really drawn to it. But this book, the motifs in the India section of this book, so it's got motifs from all different Asian countries. I can't speak to how accurate all of those images are, but I can speak to the India section, and they are very accurate, and they represent symbols from India that you just I would never see these represented in cross stitch. I was amazed to see these dance poses here because Bharatnatyam is not a well-known form of dance. My sister learned how to do this when she was younger, and my friend Geeta, this is actually a gift for my friend Geeta, who's also a dancer. So when I saw those motifs, I just thought, I can't believe I'm seeing this in cross stitch. So it was really cool to see it. Usually when people stitch India stuff, it's like, probably like with any other country, right? When you think of a country, you end up thinking of like its most common symbols or places. So usually cross stitch related to India is like the Taj Mahal or elephants with like decorated blankets on them, or maybe sometimes mandalas, but even mandalas are not Indian, they're Buddhist. So Buddhism spread across many different Asian countries, so it's not tied to just one country. So to find something that's very specific, like a very specific cultural reference, it was a very special thing to find. And that it's very accurate. Like growing up, I went to a lot of my sister's dance performances and I've seen all of these poses as part of the program. So it was really cool to find this. Now, that being said, you know, I'm always going to have stuff to say about cultural stitching. I like I said, I can't speak to the accuracy of the other motifs, the other Asian countries that are represented in this book. And I saw just the other day a pattern on Instagram that was also designed by Véronique Angenger, but it was, let me think where I saw it. Oh, it was from, I follow the hashtag for cross stitch in Japanese. If you want to follow it too, it's really interesting because then you can see stitching from stitchers all over, cross stitchers all over Japan. Cross stitch is really big there. And so you get a lot of interesting things you're seeing. So someone had also stitched motifs by Véronique Angenger, but they were representing indigenous cultures very stereotypically. So it was a piece that had like, you know, a child wearing a headdress with one feather, a teepee, someone making sounds with their mouth, their hand over their mouth. And it looked very stereotypical and it had no cultural information with it. So I'm always it's great that these patterns for India were accurate, but that doesn't mean that the designer is necessarily accurate with representing all cultures. You know what I mean? I think it's good to do your work when you research something before you stitch a culture. So anyway, I'm very excited about this. I'm going to put this in the mail this week. I don't know how to finish it. I'm wondering if okay, so what did I use? I always forget to mention my materials. I end up talking about everything else. This is a mixture of all different kinds of threads. So there's some DMC, there's some, like this variegated yellow here came in a grab bag of silks for you. I have these just individual, like however long they are, like 8-meter skeins or whatever. So a couple of them, like these variegated ones, like this pink, that's probably a silks for you. The others are DMC. And I don't know what this fabric is. Maybe like a mushroom linen. Maybe. It's a beigey, taupey linen. And it feels slippery to it. So I don't know. You'll know better than me, like what brands are a little bit more slick and slippery rather than soft. But I like it because like the Om symbol in the middle, that white, I feel like it stands out really nicely on this. So I have scrap material that I cut off. I didn't use the whole piece. So now I'm wondering if I should stitch something white on it because it stands out really nicely on that. So yeah, so anyway, finishing it, maybe could put it in like an oval or round frame, like a white frame. That might be kind of nice. I'm gonna have to see what I can find, or I may just mail it to Geeta and see what she wants to do with it. Pick something that like fits her home, you know? So we will see, but I want to get this in the mail to her. So that was from Balades on Asie Walks in Asia by Véronique Angenger. And then the motifs, this like to put them in a round like that, I decided to do that myself. In the pattern book, in that book, they were just like in a row. And so originally I thought, well, should I do like a huge sampler and just put dancers all over it? I thought, no, I just want to finish it. So I put them in a round and then put the Om symbol in the middle. Okay, so that I had a finish, and I'm pretty excited because I have been starting a lot of new things this year, but I also have a lot of holdover whips from last year and the year before. So it feels good to finish something old, and maybe more of that will happen soon, I hope. Okay, I have one Stitchy kindness I'm going to show you. So this has been the longest month ever. I actually, at the beginning of this month, I met a couple of Stitchy friends in real life. Like we were sitting at a table together. So I met with Laura, who is Tarsier Stitches on Flosstube, and Miriam, who is Marumi Crafts on Instagram. And I'll see if I can put a picture of us up here. Anyway, I put a picture of us, or Miriam put a picture of us up on her Instagram page. And so Laura had made each of us maneki neko, which looks like this. And it's a cat with like paws that are kind of supposed to be calling you over. They're like gesturing for you to come over. And it's supposed to be a good luck symbol. And so Laura had said that she had this is on perforated paper. It's a gold colored perforated paper. And it's double paper, 2 sheets of paper back to back, because she also stitched a symbol on the back. Laura will have to correct me. It could be the symbol for happiness. I don't remember. But that was real cute. She made one for Miriam and one for me too. So this goes This will be on the bookshelf back there in front of that painting that my friend Monique made for me. So I'll put that up there. So thank you, Laura. It's a Maneki Neko. Neko is cat. Maneki, I'm not sure. You'll have to follow. I'll put Laura's Flosstube name, Tarsier Stitches. I'll put it down in the description below. I'll make a list. I usually in my description box, I'll make a list of all the different projects that I show you in my video, and then also a list that says like Flosstubers or people who I mention. So I'll put Laura's name down there. Laura's family is of Japanese origin. Well, like they're Okinawan, which is one of the indigenous groups from what is now Japan. So she knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. So you'll check her out and see what she's got to say about that. Okay, I am going to, we got to finish a Stitchy Kindness. I'm going to grab some whips. I have a whole bunch that I worked on. I'll be right back, and then we will talk whips. Okay, whips. I've got tons of them. Let's get going. Okay, this first one, is this a whip or is it a new start? This one's a new start. Okay, first whip is, I did a little bit more work on Bee Sampler by Lila's Studio. And I love this one. It's kind of a longer piece and very short. The width is not very wide. So what I wanted to do on this, I was really, really trying to finish all of the DMC 310, all of the black DMC 310. And I got really close, but I'm not there yet. So you are seeing like I've reached the top and the bottom of it. Have I? Yeah. Like this is that bottom there, that bird, and then that kind of half motif right here. Like that is the bottom edge, and this is the top edge up here. So it's not very wide, but it is kind of a longer piece. Let me show you a little bit closer up what it looks like. I love this piece. It is on a piece of light blue violet, I think, light ultra blue violet. Doesn't look very blue to you probably, but it's definitely like kind of a purpley blue. And I'm using the called for colors. So mostly DMC 310. And then there are 2 shades of yellow. So the brighter yellow is Sunflower by Gentle Art. And the more dull yellow is Mustard Seed, also by Gentle Art. And I'm using 3 strands over 2 because this is a 28 count fabric. And I like for my stitches to just totally cover the fabric. So yeah, so that's how it looks. I really love this one a lot. I think I want to keep it out because it is kind of small. Really, when you look at it, it's pretty small. So I'm going to see if I can knock this out this year. So I will probably continue to keep this. I keep all my pieces that I'm working on for the month behind. I have a bin behind my couch. So I think this will continue to be a couch piece. I'll keep it out. So I love it. I can't wait for it to finish this one. It's so cute. I'm actually wondering if I should give this to, I have a friend of mine who is a beekeeper. Actually, I have someone who watches me on Flosstube who's a beekeeper too, but I have a friend here in the Chicago area who started keeping bees during the pandemic, and now she just loves them. Like she pretends she knows all their names and everything. So I may do this as a gift stitch for her, or I may just want to keep it for myself. We'll see. Okay, so that again, this is what the finished one will look like. It's Bee Sampler by Lila's Studio. I love that one. I really like Lila's Studio. There are a lot of really pretty projects by her. Okay, this one, you never thought for people who've been watching me, you never thought I'd pull this one out. So this is one of my very rare full coverage pieces, and it's a pattern that I created in Pick-to-Pat, which is a website where you can upload a picture and then it turns it into a cross stitch pattern. So this is actually for my partner, Steve, and it's a picture of his bicycle in front of a mural, a Felipe Pantone mural here in the Chicago area. And so it's actually, as far as full coverage stitching goes, it's actually a pretty easy pattern because the hardest part is, of course, going to be his bike. I'll try to put in a picture. The hardest part will be all the features of his bicycle because it's also part of it is in shadow, which makes it such a cool picture. But the color blocking in the mural is actually really easy. It's like huge chunks of color. So once I get to that part, it could actually be kind of manageable. And don't ask me why I decided to take this out. Now, I think I know exactly why I took this out, because I was working on a marigold pattern by my friend Sarah, who's Mod Cross. She's a cross stitch designer on Etsy, and I was working on her marigold pattern last month, and that's a teeny tiny full coverage piece. And I think it just gave me confidence to take out some more like, I don't have much full coverage stitching to do, but it made me think like, oh, maybe I could just chip away at some full coverage. So I just spent an evening on this, and I had done this black part. This is Steve's bike tire in shadow. And then this is actually part of his bicycle. You're starting to see like some of the lines for the bike spokes coming in there. That's what's happening. So it's kind of cool. It's like hitting the first color block, which is blue. And I'm doing this. This is a 25 count easy grid. No, yeah, easy grid, I think is what it's called, right? When the lines are already on it. It's a 25 count, and I'll show you real close up. I am using tent stitch. Tent stitch is only half of the X in a cross stitch. So I'm using 2 strands on 25 count, but I'm only stitching one part of the X on there. And that is 100% why I can zip through and do like a whole block like this in just an evening, like in a work night, right? I got home from work and I was able to do one whole section like that. It's because I'm only doing half the stitch. It makes it so much easier. So I think I will continue with that. If I ever take on more full coverage, which is very doubtful, tent stitch is going to be the way to go. It actually feels like you're making progress on it. Those blues are really pretty, aren't they? Can you kind of envision like the spokes of the wheel there, the tire? So this, I think I may keep behind the couch too, because maybe like this summer, while I'm off, I'll try to chip away at that. So I don't use Pattern Keeper. I know every full coverage stitcher out there is like, how can you not be using Pattern Keeper for a full coverage piece? I don't have a really good tablet where the app works very well on it. So for this month, for this piece, what I did is I made a copy of, it's Pictopat creates a PDF, right? So I have the PDF, I have my original PDF from Pictopat. Then I make a copy of the PDF and I rename it Working Copy of Steve's Bike. And then that one, when I open it up in my PDF like app on my computer, I'm able to use the highlighting option in the menu to actually block off stitches and highlight them as I work on them. So that's what I've been doing. I just kind of manually highlight it. It's what works for me. I know like some of you who are really big into full coverage, you're like, you're making it so much harder for yourself. It just works for me. For the like rare times when I actually do work on full coverage, I feel like it's working for me. And then the other thing I did was for this section, as I took up a new color to stitch just in this like block here, I decided to stay in this block. For each new symbol that I stitched, I wrote it on a card and then wrote down what color it is because there's so many blues in that area. I didn't want to get confused. So I just kind of made myself like a mini symbol chart and I kept that out. That way it's like, okay, this is DMC, 934. What am I doing with this? Oh yeah, I'm stitching this symbol with this. So it just kind of helped me. If I got distracted, I could very easily tell where to go back to on that. So that worked, and I'm pretty happy with my progress on that, and hopefully you'll be seeing a little bit more of that. Okay, next one, I could go on and on about this one, but I won't. I'll make it quick. So I worked a little bit on Patchwork Quaker by Wiehenburg Designs. And I love this one. If you're going to recognize something that's very similar to this, because if you watch Shiloh, who's Cross Stitch MD, Shiloh's been working on there are like 4 or 5 different variations of these Patchwork Quakers. And I think the one that Shiloh's working on is called Garden Quaker, maybe. Anyway, there's like a Rose Quaker. There are several different ones. So I'm doing the States version, I guess meaning United States, because it's all reds and blues. And so what I do on this one is I take this out whenever I feel frustrated about things that are going on in this country, because I've kind of made a commitment to myself that whenever I'm intending to stitch on this, I first want to do some reading about interesting voices who make up who we are as a country, who are maybe not always represented. And then eventually I want to stitch those voices, their names, into this piece. So the last time I picked this up, I was reading a really great book by Mary Frances Berry, who's a civil rights activist. So her name will go in this. I've read several different books that are going to be going into here. So sometimes fiction, sometimes nonfiction. So, frustrating things have been happening and keep happening here. So one of the ways that I process what's going on is by reading something that inspires me to act. So this month, and a lot of times I end up turning to civil rights activists because I think they were very strong people in the face of hate. And so I feel like we need to hear from those kinds of voices. Like, how did they do it? And how do we do it? How do we stand up to hate and violence? So I picked up March. And March it's a 3-part series. It's written by John Lewis. And John Lewis was a very prominent civil rights activist here. And he if you don't know who he is, he just recently passed away, maybe last year or the year before. Such a kind voiced man, such a wonderful man. I'm going to link like a whole section of his just interviews with him about this book. He is one of the most soft-spoken, kind voices that you will ever hear. So I often, like when I feel frustrated or helpless, I always go back to him for inspiration. And then if you like want a good cry too, for like, I'm a sympathetic crier, and I also just cry. I'm a very emotional person. So he is the type of voice you just can't believe, like the fountain of kindness that he is. Like I think it's very rare that we meet people with that level of kindness in life. So check him out. I will link some videos with him below, some interviews he's done on like late night TV and stuff here. But anyway, he worked with a team and made a comic book, a graphic novel based on his life and his experience as a civil rights activist. It's very moving. It's very compelling. So his name is going to get stitched into my Patchwork Quakers States, and I'm going to read all 3 of these eventually. This is very, really, really, like, everybody just needs to read this. This is part of our history, and we all need to be reading it. And we can it's something that will, if you feel like a helplessness or you don't know what to do, I think it's such an inspiration to read how other people did it, and then it will motivate you to do things too. So let me show you the piece. This is actually a restart, so it's going to look different from the last time I showed it to you. It's a teeny tiny start. So let's see, let me hold up the picture and I'll show you where we're at. So we're working on this motif up here, this blue central motif up here, and that's what I've started here. So I restarted this because my original version was on a 25 count fabric, but then I realized it was going to be very hard to backstitch the names of all these voices I'm reading on a 25 count. So instead I'm using an 18 count. This is a new, I ordered some Stitch Me fabrics last year. So this came in that pack, and it's called Patriotic. So it's got like these splotches of red and blue on there, which I really, really love. And I think this pattern would look great on this. I can't wait to see what it looks like. I mean, it's already looking, I like the way it looks already. So I'm using the called for, it's all charted in DMC. So I'm using the called for colors. And I'm very excited I want to finish that book. What I'm not sure about is, like, the design is very tight. So I think what I might have to do is either stitch the names like off to the side, or maybe make a border of names. I'm gonna have to think about how to incorporate the names into this piece. But they will be backstitched. They'll be small and they'll be backstitched somewhere in here. Or maybe, like, there are little tiny gaps in the pattern. Maybe I can backstitch into like these tiny little gaps, but it's already looking pretty crowded, so I don't know. I'm gonna see. I'll see how it goes. Actually, I could probably I wonder if I could fit John Lewis's name right there. I might have to do some backstitch charting and just see what I can fit into there. So anyway, got this restarted and did some some motivational reading. And please check out the videos that I link below. If you want to have if you want a feel good moment of the day, you're going to watch some videos by John Lewis. He will just, and then I watch them all the time. Like whenever I feel frustrated or feel like I just can't do something, like I can't get out of a rut of feeling like change is possible, I always turn to John Lewis. He's so inspiring. And what else can I say about him? You may recognize him because he was in the group of people that was always with Martin Luther King Jr. So like if you see any old black and white photos of marches, protests, any kind of gatherings for leading up to civil rights, you'll see Martin Luther King Jr. And then like probably right next to him or just a couple people away will be John Lewis. He was always there. He's in all those pictures. He spoke at the March on Washington. So he was there. He lived all of that, Very inspiring story. Okay. Shall we talk about some cultural stitching? I have like a mishmash of everything here. So, okay. This one is, I'll show you one of my WIPGO pieces, Turkish Delight by Ink Circles. So this is based on Iznik patterns from Turkey. And here's what it's looking like so far. I'll show you a little bit closer too. I really love this piece. I worked a little bit on the bottom. It was down in the bottom section this month, like down this final quarter of it down here, all that blue. It's working on all that. So what is this on? This fabric is Rustic Fall by Fiberlicious. The threads are, the bright blue is, oh gosh, it's Silks for You, maybe 65. Hold on, did I write it down? I'm going to see if I wrote it down. Hang on one sec. I don't have the color. I want to say it's PR 065, but I'll double check. If you really want to know, let me know in the comments below and I'll look it up. The teal, that kind of seafoamy green, is Color and Cotton limited edition teal. And I'm using, it's an 18 count Aida. I'm using 2 strands over it. I really love this a lot. I chose these colors because I looked at I researched on my own Iznik tiles. So like this is I did not use the called for colors on this. I change colors out a lot. But instead I researched Iznik tile patterns, and a lot of them have like these bright blues with these kind of seafoamy greens. So that's what I went with on this one. Now, Ink Circles tends to be pretty okay with providing cultural information on their patterns, which I really like. It's not a huge amount of information, but at least it tells you where the pattern is from and something. Like I knew from the description in the pattern that this was Turkish and that the source is Iznik tiles. So that is better than nothing, I think, in terms of cultural information. But I like to read a lot on my own. So I will share with you, I'll link below. There is a super fascinating article that I found, and it's, hang on, I have it open in a tab. I'm going to tell you about it. It's from Asian Art, which is a periodical that's like written for people who work in the art industry. So people who run galleries, people who are museum curators. And there was an exhibit in Hong Kong about, let me get it straight. There was an exhibit in Hong Kong where they were showcasing Persian art. So Turkey was part of the old Persian Empire. Today it stretches into like what is today Turkey, Iran, even like Pakistan, Afghanistan a little bit, and Egypt. So all of these places in the Persian Empire have these colors in their artwork. And that exhibit, that article talks about an exhibit in Hong Kong that was called the Blue Road, because what they did is they talked about, the old trade routes that crossed Asia, that connected East Asia, like China and India, with the Middle East and then onto Europe. Those trade routes are often called, like they're referred to as the Silk Road, right? The transportation of silk and textiles. They called their exhibit, though, in Hong Kong, this exhibit, they called it the Blue Road, because what they wanted to do was trace the color blue and how it's used in all these different parts of the world and how those trade routes encouraged cultures to use blue. So, for example, in Chinese porcelain, you'll see a lot of blue, and they were saying that that is inspired by the way that the Persian Empire used blue in their porcelain. So I find that stuff really interesting. It might not be very interesting to you, but if you like reading about sources for dyes, materials used to create dyes, and then like the history of textiles, you might really like this article. I found it super fascinating. And I do feel like I feel like it's really important when you're stitching on something from a culture that's not your own. It's really important to read about it. Otherwise, it kind of feels like if you don't read about it, if you're just stitching something and you're disconnected to the culture, to me, it feels like you're just taking something from that culture and not giving anything back, if that makes sense. So like learning about it and being able to share that knowledge with others, for me, that's a tiny, tiny way to give back. Like recognition or acknowledgement that this is not from our culture, if that makes sense. So I love reading about this stuff. I'll link that article below, and it's so funny because that you'll see exactly what I mean. There's a photograph of a Persian porcelain piece, like a ceramic piece with a figure on it and some beautiful plants. And that, look, the colors on it are exactly these two colors. So you'll see exactly what I mean. When I researched Iznik tiles, there were so many pieces that use these same two colors. So I just couldn't help using those two colors on it. So again, that was Ink Circles, Turkish Delight. Okay, my other WIPGO piece is also in Ink Circles. I'm gonna try to open it up and show you. This is kind of a larger piece. It's Squirrels of Sumatra. And it looks like this so far. Now this was, so for WIPGO this month, so WIPGO is Work in Progress Bingo, and it was started by Jesse Marie does stuff. And it's just a way for you to identify projects that you want to chip away at and set goals for yourself. So on my WIPGO board, I have only 5 pieces listed, and I have them just repeated over and over again on my board, so that, for example, if I follow through with my WIPGO goals this year, I will have picked this up 5 times this year and worked on it 5 days each time I picked it up. So this month there were 3 numbers called. So one of the numbers called was the middle space, and some people leave that as their free space on their WIPGO board. I just said on mine, pick any of your 5 projects and work on it for 5 days. So I picked up this one. And the section that I worked in was over here in these, there's like this panel right here is almost like a mini border sampler. It's a rows of different borders. So I finished this border here, and then I came in and started working on this one here. So I didn't really get a whole lot done on this one. This is, so talking culture, there's a whole series that is from Ink Circles that are the Sumatra series. So this is Squirrels of Sumatra. There's a Dragons of Sumatra. There's a Forests of Sumatra. Is there anything else? I think that's all of them. And Sumatra is in Indonesia. And these are all motifs that were inspired by, they're called tampan cloths. They're traditional woven textiles from Indonesia. And so a lot of these motifs come from that. You can kind of tell, like when you see an Ink Circles pattern, there are certain things that are very Ink Circle-y and certain things that are very cultural. So for example, like these sorts of flourishes right here, like these leaves and flourishes, that is very Ink Circle-y to me. You'll see like almost every Ink Circles piece has those kind of flourishes on things. So the more traditional things, I wonder if like these motifs here, like I don't see those as often in Ink Circles pieces. So those kind of things might be the more traditionally inspired. I love this section. I got to show you this section right here. Every time I see this, section over here, like all of this here, so totally, nerd alert here, it so totally reminds me of Battlestar Galactica. I'm a big sci-fi fan, and I love Battlestar Galactica, the new series from the 2000s. And there's like, don't these motifs over here look like the ships? Like they have these, for those of you who are also Battlestar Galactica fans, they have these images like before a scene starts where they'll show the fleet, all the ships out in space kind of flying together. And to me, this totally reminds me of that. Like just the rows of ships all flying in the same direction. I can't unsee it now that I see it. Okay, so that again is Squirrels of Sumatra. I'm chipping away at it. I would like to really finish all of my WIPGO goals this year if I can. Okay, next WIP. This is so much fun to work on. So this is the Pro-Choice Sal. It's by Sarah, who is Notorious Needle. And it's a Sal. It is a weekly Sal. It comes out, I think we get new parts each week. I have to look and see which parts I still need to download. So it's got sections, and each one has got some message related to being pro-choice. And so I have very little done on it, but I love what I've done so far. I love all the font stitching on it. I love the gradients in the letters. I have a little bit of lady parts coming in here. I don't remember what this part is going to say here. I like all these mini borders. The whole thing uses super bright colors. I love all of that. Oh, you know what? Sorry. I'm going to backtrack and tell you what I always forget. I'm so sorry. I always forget to tell you what materials I use. This is an 18 count. Picture this plus. It's Mystic. Fantastic blue, right? And then the threads, it's sulky. The threads are sulky, and it's, I want to say it's 4044. It's butterscotch. The color is called butterscotch. Nice variegated yellows, like yellows and browns on that one. Okay, so then the colors on this one, it's called for DMC. It uses like maybe 10 or 12 or 15 colors of DMC, all bright blues and purples and pinks. And then the fabric, I don't remember. I think it's a hand dyed by Rolanda, maybe. I don't remember what this fabric is. But it's a 36 count linen, I can tell you that much. And I'm using the called for DMC on it. Super excited about that. It's kind of like a dark cocoa. This could be cocoa. It could be cocoa from maybe Mystic Fabrics or Fiber on a Whim. I get those two mixed up. I think that's what it could be cocoa. I think that's what it is. I'm really enjoying that one. Sarah and her mom are delightful. Sarah from Notorious Needle. I didn't realize they had a Flosstube, and they're coming to StitchCon weekend A, so I'm hoping to meet them. They have a very lovely Flosstube, so I will link them below. And this is maybe the second Sal that Sarah has created, because I think there was another a We Believe Sal too, I think, so far. Okay, moving right along, everybody. Let me show you one more. So this is my third WIPGO piece. This is the bookcase by Galliana Designs. I'm doing this on a 20 count Aida from Color and Cotton. The color is Onyx, which is it not like a super dreamy dark color? It's actually a really, really dark purple, but the shade is called Onyx. And I'm using a DMC color variations. I'm never going to remember what number this is. I always forget to look it up, but it's called something Meadow. So if you look up DMC color variations and type Meadow when you Google it, that's the color. It's this beautiful kind of variegated pale tones to it. And I love it. What I did this month is I brought the bookcase. This is the armoire of the bookcase. It goes up. There are two doors on either side. So this is the panel that's in the middle, and then I did all this top section. So I'm loving that one. And this is called up again for this month. So I'll be working on this once again. And I did this. This was weeknight stitching for me, so I didn't get super far on it, but it is very satisfying to look. Isn't it one that kind of looks amazing as you look back on it? I'm always amazed by this pattern because in what, like, it's meant to be a monochromatic pattern, but you see so much detail. Like all of the decoration, all of the detailed carving, all of the book spines, that vase, those flowers, everything is just so pretty with it. So I can't wait to keep going on this one. Am I using one? I'm using one strand on this 20 count. Now, I don't always. On 20 count, sometimes I'll use 2 strands because I like really tight coverage. But I think because this is a dark color fabric, when it was dyed, it probably has shrunk a bit. So it's not truly a 20 count. It's probably more like a 21 or 22. So one strand is working just fine on it. Okay, moving right along. I told you I worked on a lot of whips this month. Okay, I am slowly catching up to my own sale that I started in January. So this is Kain Kapal number, it's either number 3 or number 4. The design is by Java Cross Stitch on Etsy, and the designer is named Era. She is a designer from Indonesia. So this is a cross stitch pattern based on a traditional Indonesian weaving called a kain kapal, which translates to ship cloth, because there were ships shown in the motif. So you're not seeing the boat. This is part of the ship right here. There's a boat and then people and animals on the boat. Kain kapal were traditional weavings that used to be gifted to people during the various stages of their lives. In this particular, in the kind of Java area of Indonesia. So, when children were born, when people got married, when people passed away, they were buried with their kain kapal. When they got married, they were gifted kain kapal. So these ship cloths there were markers of the milestones of people's lives. And I think it's really cool. So it's awesome that Era created a pattern based on these traditional cloths. As someone from the area where these motifs are from, she gives some really nice descriptions in her Etsy store of the significance of these patterns. So I love that. So I started this as a sal in January because it broke up perfectly into 12 parts. So what we're trying to do is stitch 1 part each month. I am a little bit behind myself, and you're welcome to join in anytime. If you want to diversify your stitching a little bit, this is a great project to join in on. It is so easy. The pattern is terrifying because the way that the symbols are on it, what Era has done is see all my background that's fabric here. In her pattern, she actually has tent stitches all over that. So it's supposed to have tent stitching peppered all through there. I'm not doing that tent stitching. I'm just leaving it. So it actually stitches up super fast. This border right here was January. I sat down thinking I was going to need all day for it, and I was done in 2 hours. It was hardly anything. Same thing with February. This was March. Each of these is so easy to do. So now we're working, there's going to be another border here that will come later this year. So January, February, March. Now we're doing April, May, and June. So those are the 3 top parts of the ship here. So April, May, and June. So I'm working on April and May. I need to work a little bit more in this area to finish it up. I'm almost there. April, May, June, July, August, September will be the bottom of the boat. October, and then November and December. So it'll work out perfectly. There's just enough easily dividable sections to do a section every month. I love this. I kind of want to do, so I think this is Kain Kapal 3. I don't remember. Era has 2 patterns in her Etsy store. One is called Kain Kapal 3 and one is called Kain Kapal 4. And one of them has mostly blue motifs with touches of red, and the other one is almost all red. I kind of want to do the red one as a sal for next year and have them both be companion pieces. They're so pretty. So we use the hashtag Kain Kapal Sal. I'll spell it down below. I'll try to add some text to this so you can see it. And if you want to join in, if you even just want to stitch the border, these borders are just amazing. I love them. They're really, really satisfying. This is an unbelievably satisfying stitch. You would never think so. By looking at the scary pattern, you would never think so, but it's wonderful. It's wonderful to stitch on. Oh, what am I using? I'm using the called for DMC, which is a variety of different blues. And then I want to say this is like 3777, maybe this red. And then the fabric, what did I use? I always forget my fabrics. I think it's Brown Sugar by Fiber on a Whim. I think that's what I ended up using. Brown Sugar by Fiber on a Whim. Part of my problem with remembering my fabrics, especially if it's, I think usually when I forget my fabric names, it's probably either a Fiber on a Whim or Mystic fabrics, because I have some of those in my stash that I had bought from Garon last year. And Garon, when they package up fabrics, they put it like in a plastic sleeve and then have a sticker on it with the label. Well, those plastic sleeves, they've like fly off and like, they get lost all the time. So then I don't know what fabric I'm using. Like I'm not even kidding. I found one in the garden the other day. Like there was like plastic debris amongst, I have a patch of lilies of the valley. I'm like, what is this? Because sometimes trash blows into our yard. It was one of my Fiber on a Whim wrappers sitting back there. So the stuff just slips out when I stitch back there. I think stuff just falls out, or like here, it's probably under the couch somewhere. I don't even know what it is. Okay. I have one last WIP to show you, and then we can talk about new starts and plans. Okay. So this is also a restart, just like my Patchwork Quakers States was a restart. I restarted this one as well. So this is Etude by Lina Cross Stitch, who is also a designer on Etsy. And it's just a set of tiles. It's 8 square tiles across and then 10 rows of tiles going down. So it's 80 tiles. It's 80 tiny square tiles. And you're seeing just bits of every tile because I got restless and I wanted to see what it would look like to get from one end all the way to the other. So right here, like this green tile that I started here, that's one of 8 tiles. So let me count them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this green tile right here is the last one. So you're seeing, this is the width of it. And then imagine 10 tiles going down the side. That's the length of it. I worked on this yesterday. So it's very fast. The motifs are geometric. So once you get the hang of one, it's easy to catch on to how the rest of it should go. And I'm using the called for colors. So isn't this kind of a very pretty mix of colors? I'm just using the called for. It's a lot of blues and greens with like, there are a couple of little pops of surprising color. Like this kind of ochre color here is DMC 3826, I think. It's very pretty, like what would you call that? Like a coppery color kind of? I love that. I would love to do a monochromatic piece in that. So pretty. And then this like bright seafoam green. I love the different types of greens and blues. There's like a coral pink that's going to show up in one of them. I love that. The fabric is Fiber on a Whim, I think. And it's persimmon. I know the color is persimmon. And I think it's Fiber on a Whim. I got to show you this fabric opened up. It's very pretty. Isn't that so nice? It's like a peachy pink color. And I think it's showing off. I laid out the DMC on top of it. I have pretty much all the called for DMC. Whatever I don't have, I'll just substitute because I'm trying. Everything I'm showing you today is like even the restarts, I'm stitching from stash. I don't have any new materials I've been buying. I've picked up new patterns this year, but not any new materials because I just have too much in stash. So if I start something like this, a restart, and I don't have all the called for colors, I'm just substituting with what I have in stash because I don't need to be getting any more materials. I already have way too much. So that's it. It's just very enjoyable. I'm hoping to just kind of keep chipping away at this one. And yeah, that's Etude by Lina Cross Stitch. Okay, those are all my WIPs. I have some new items that I always start something new. I can't stop myself. So let me grab those and I'll be right back. Okay, everyone, let's talk about some new starts. I'm always starting. I love like the creative burst of energy that goes into planning new projects and kitting up new projects and starting new projects. So I've tons and tons that I've started. The first one, of course, I had to start after meeting Miriam in real life. Miriam is Marumi Crafts, and she's a designer. And so she has this whole series called the Magical Carpet Menagerie. And they all have super cute names. It's an animal with a little border, and there are a series of them, and they all have kind of an adjective and then the animal name. So I chose 4 of them. Let me see if I remember what they all are. This one over here is going to be Hazy Hen. And there's going to be a big hen right here, but you can see one of the little chicks right here. Next to that is going to be Lanky Camel, and the camel hasn't come in yet. They're so pretty, right? Check these borders. Each one has like a gorgeous border, and then some kind of like a celestial looking, like a sun or motif, like a medallion of some kind, and then the animal. I don't remember which one is which down here. So there will be 4, right? It's 4 corners that are meeting here. One of them on the bottom is Funky Peacock. And what's the last one? I want to look. Hold on. I have Miriam's Instagram open. Let me just look real quick. Lanky Camel, Hazy Hen. There were Giddy Crabs just came out, and I might want to try to like squeeze in Giddy Crabs off to the side because it's really cute crab pattern. Funky Peacock, Hazy Hen. Who am I missing? Oh, Wonky Cat. Wonky Cat is one of these too. It's a really cute cat pattern where like the eyes are kind of askew in different directions. So I was originally going to wait because Miriam is doing like a whole series of these. So I thought, well, should I just wait until I feel like she's done the last one and then try to put them all in one like kind of big piece? But then I got too impatient, especially after meeting Miriam in person. What an awesome person. So I definitely wanted to try stitching her patterns. So then I just picked 4. It was the 4 that had come out at that time. And I said, well, let me just center them all together. And their dimensions are like slightly off a little bit, but I think that'll be okay. Each one will kind of go out in whatever direction it needs to go out in, but they will meet in the center. So that's how I'm doing those. So check those out. I will link in my description section below where I have people who I've mentioned linked. Miriam will be down there and you can check out. Miriam is offering she's selling her patterns on Gumroad, I think. So they'll be in, like if you go to Miriam's profile and click on her link tree, you'll see the links where to get those. I'm loving these borders. Okay, what materials am I using? This is a fiber on a whim. I think it's wheat, and it's an 18 count Aida. And I'm using PR, Silks for You, PR, maybe 132, I think is the code. It's like a variegated teal, but the variegation is very light. I don't know if you'll even see it really, but it's a pretty teal. I stitched with a lot of teal, different shades of teal. So that is totally fun. I can't wait to keep going on this one. Because it's on 18 count Aida, makes it such an easy stitch too. And I love the borders. I love all the little medallion motifs that are coming in. It's going to be a fun one to keep going with. Okay, next one is on May 1st. There was a group of stitchers. It was Beth, who is Steadfast Stitcher on Flosstube. I think Maria, who is Cup of Stitches. I'm missing someone. Oh, Mary, I think Daydream Stitcher, and now Miriam is doing it too. There are people who are doing this, the Matter in Hand pattern by Jeanette Douglas, which is just this adorable pattern with all these cross-stitch references on it, like that thimble, pin cushion, this embroidery hoop, spools of thread, this floss, bobbin, scissors, and this like beautiful skein of floss here. A lot of pretty stuff going on in this pattern. So I said I was going to start this too, and I did. And in my last video under plans, I said I was going to start this, but I was really thinking about colors. Like I had just an itch to try to change the color scheme. I do it a lot. I change the called for colors. I don't always use called for. So I finally settled on my colors. So this fabric, I have a suspicion this is a brand that I don't use anymore. I don't remember what fabric this is. But my colors are Let's see if I can remember them all. Okay, DMC 310 is the black. Let me fold this up a little bit smaller. Okay, DMC 310 is black, like in this thimble here, that's black. That beautiful, check my tomato. I'm loving the variegation in that. Okay, so that color, I'm using a couple of Color and Cottons. So that one is Cardamom by Color and Cotton. And it's like a variegated white, but it's got that, like those shades of gray in there, which are really, really pretty. And that's what I'm using over here too, this white in the embroidery hoop. And then the blue is DMC Color Variations. It's Caribbean blue. And I also have some brown in there. I'm using black, brown, white, and blue. So the brown is Mahogany by Color and Cotton. So I used to belong to Color and Cotton's thread club, and then I just got overwhelmed because I got so many skeins that I wasn't using. So I have a pretty decent stash. So that's what I've drawn from for this. And I think it should be enough. I have a full skein. Like I've barely even touched anything in the skein, and I've done like full coverage on 2 of the motifs. So I think I should have plenty to finish it out. So I love it. I really love this pattern. I think it's so pretty. And I love all the little motifs. I love all the cross stitch references. I changed, in addition to the colors on it, I also changed, like in the pattern, in the embroidery hoop right here, it says ABC, but I changed mine to JOY for joy. So I had to chart that out a little bit. I made up. I just made up how to write those 3 letters. And I use an index card. I just draw a grid on it, and then I kind of play around with the spacing. I look at how much spacing is available there, and then I draw that many boxes on an index card, and then I just kind of pencil in what it could look like. So just a real quick kind of sketch on how to do it, and that's how I did it. So I totally love it. I think it's so pretty. This tomato pincushion, what I did was I used a method that I had heard about from Abby Bella Stitch on Flosstube. And she had a video some time ago where she had stitched a project with a moon on it. And she said instead of going across with her variegated thread, she kind of went around in circles. So she followed the curve of the motif. So she stitched up and then came back down, stitched up and came back down. So that's what I did with this tomato. I visualized 3 segments. And so then I stitched along the curves of those segments. So the variegation is curved because of that too. And I like it. It provides an interesting shading, I think. It turned out even better than I thought it was going to be. So I love that. Now I want to stitch like everything round so I can keep trying that method on it. Yeah, so this I hope to, as with all my projects, I hope to keep chipping away at that one too. I really like it. And I kind of like, do I have it here? I don't. I had ordered a long time ago, I had ordered like a little pair of scissors from Abby Top Knot Stitcher, and it's like it's almost black. It's not black, but it's like a brownish, like a dark bronzy black color. And I just love, it's one of my favorite pair of scissors. I just always have it on my like coffee table. And so that's kind of what I envision when I stitch all of these scissors. I'm making them all black because they kind of remind me of my pair of scissors that I use all the time. I love this piece. The blue, check the blue border, that Caribbean blue. I'm using it in several projects. I love the variegation on it. I chose Caribbean blue actually because I wish I had thought to bring a skein here to show you. Well, you can kind of see. It variegates from this really, really dark teal right here. Like this dark teal and that bright blue, that's all the same skein of thread. And even like these pale blues that you're seeing along there, it variegates from the lightest aqua blue all the way to this dark teal. And I thought that might be good for a project like this where I'm narrowing down, like the called for colors in this are actually a lot of colors. Maybe like 7 or 8 colors, maybe I think more than that even. So I thought, well, if I use a variegated blue, I could be deliberate in how I use the variegated parts of those colors. So like, for example, this right here is going to be a spool of, I'll show you which motif it is. this spool right here that has the flower, the like star flower motifs in it, and then it's got a lighter background, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm using only segments of that darkest teal to do the flowers, but then I'm going to fill it in with white. But I could have filled it in with the aqua tones on there too and just made it a lighter blue. So it's almost like you're really stitching with like, I've added 4 colors to my Padlet, 3 or 4 colors to my palette just by using a variegated thread. So I like that. And, there's a word, you're going to remember it more than I will. There's a word for that when you like deliberately use certain sections of a variegated thread, like you want to use all dark in this part or use only the light parts in this part. And I can't remember what that's called, but I don't often do that because if you're using a variegated thread that's a fancy floss, those are kind of pricey. So you don't want to be chopping up your segments and creating segments that you can't really use as well. But with a DMC color variations, it's a lot more affordable. So I feel like I can chop it up and be a little bit more choosy about how I use the variegation in it, which is kind of nice. So I'm loving this one. So check out everybody. I'll link everybody who I mentioned below because everybody's starting it. And so everyone's got their own way. Like Miriam is doing hers with a sulky conversion. So she's more or less sticking to the called for colors, like the variety of colors, but it's done in sulky instead of the called for, which is DMC. So you're going to see some different variations of that one. It'll be nice to check out. Okay, that again was Matter in Hand. The hashtag for it is Matter in Hand Sal. And just like with any sale, you just start it whenever you want to start it and join in. It'll be fun to see what everybody's doing with that one. Okay, I have another Indian new start to take the place of the one that I finished. And this one I started, it's another ink circle, surprise, surprise. And I had the same reaction that I had to that Bharatnatyam sampler from earlier. I had to this one too, because it's such a specific cultural reference that when I first saw it, I thought, wait a second, that looks like it is what it is. Okay, so let me just show you. I'm going to have to probably put a picture of the finished one up, but here's what I'm working on so far. Okay, so this is called Peace Wheel, but what it is representing is something called a kolam or a rangoli in South India. And what a kolam, in our family, we call it kolam. A kolam is a beautiful, symmetrical, geometric drawing that's created with usually natural substances. So usually with flour, like rice flour, and sometimes natural vegetable dyes will be added to create other colors of the powder. But you make a paste out of it, or sometimes, you make a paste out of it, you add water to it, and then you will see people drawing these very elaborate geometrical designs just like this out. Usually it's outside your front entrance of your home, and usually it's around like festivals or special occasions. So like if you're walking by and you see a huge elaborate one, you'll know that something's going on in that house. Maybe there's a wedding, or if it's festival season, everybody will have them out. My grandma used to make them outside her door just when we were visiting. Like that was a special occasion for her, so she would do them outside. So some people do them like small ones regularly too, but usually they indicate festival seasons or special occasions. And the whole point about, there's a lot of significance around these. So it's outside the door for several reasons. It's supposed to be a sign that it's kind of a welcoming sign. It's also a sign of prosperity and luck. They want everyone who passes through to have like good fortune come their way. And then it's also deliberately using natural materials because it's seen as an act of kindness to nature. Like as people eventually walk on it to come into the house or leave the house, all of that powder and that material that's used is returned to nature so that insects or animals or whoever can feed off of that. There's never any chemically type of materials used for it. It's meant to be a return to like materials that are used to return it back to nature and feed nature. I was scrolling through ink circles patterns, and I saw this one. I was like, oh my gosh, that looks just like grandma's columns. And it was when you read the description. Now the title doesn't give you any indication of what the pattern is, which I actually emailed, and I haven't heard back yet, but I actually emailed Tracy Horner some pictures of my grandma's columns, which I'll try to put up a couple of pictures here. I think I have one. I have one of either an altar or like during one of the festival seasons, there's a holiday where you put up all these figurines on these steps. So my grandma has done columns all around that. Those are inside the house. And then I think I have some, my grandma also does ones where she only does the outside border with the rice flour paste, and then she decorates the middle with flowers. So I think I have a couple of those I can put up and show you. But anyway, so I had emailed some pictures to Tracy Horner, and I had asked if she would consider maybe putting something more cultural in the name, because from the name itself, you can't tell what the inspiration is. But in her description of the project, she explains, well, this is the inspiration for this is a column. Here's what it means. Here's the significance of it, which is good. Mentioning it is good. I have used traditional colors. I have not used the called for colors because to me, like when I see this, I see my grandma's columns. So I'm using the traditional white for the white flour paste, and then I'm putting the red accents in, which sometimes my grandma will do too. She'll use red like beet dyes or what, I don't know where she gets her red color from for the natural vegetable dyes, and she'll do like accents in red. So mine is a kind of a shout out to my grandma. It's really fascinating. I'm going to see if I can try to find a video of someone actually drawing one of these. They're mesmerizing to watch. And I think that's part of it too. Like, they're very intricate patterns. And I think the whole purpose of them too is supposed to be a meditative experience while you create them, because you're standing outside, right? It's outside your house and you're listening to the birds or the wind blowing. It's an experience out in nature. You're using materials that return back to nature. And then just the act of like creating the symmetry, these symmetrical lines is supposed to be a meditative experience. And it totally is. When you watch someone create it, it's really unbelievable. My grandma would draw these dots. It starts with dots on the ground. So she would put these dots out like perfectly spaced. They don't use rulers or anything, right? It's just drawn by hand. All of it is done by hand. And then she would just like draw these like curvy lines all around it. It's mesmerizing to watch. It really is. So this is kind of I'm picking this up as my new Stitch Asia India piece. It's the same experience I had when I stitched those dancers, the Bharatnatyam dancers. Like I never could have imagined that something so specific, cultural reference so specific, would be available to stitch on. That is pretty cool. I can't wait to show my family, actually. The called for colors are really pretty. They're just not, they don't remind me of what I've seen, So I'm using more traditional colors on it. My family doesn't really like want my cross stitch projects, but I'm going to show them this one and see if maybe like my mom or grandma might even want this one. I'm happy to gift it to them or like make copies of it or whatever, make my own, for multiple versions of it. Is that all the new starts? No, I have one more new start to show you. Okay, it's not June yet, but it's almost June. And I just couldn't wait. I started stitching on the new modern folk embroidery, the Pride sale that everyone's starting this month. I went ahead and started on it because I was putting together colors from stash and I was too curious to see how they would turn out. So I'll show you what I have so far. Here's what I've got so far. Everything is from stash. The threads are almost all color and cotton from my thread clubs. The dark blue here is a cottage garden threads that I got from Garon like ages ago, and I haven't been doing anything with it. So this is perfect. I can't wait to use it. And then the fabric is a Fortnite fabrics. It's cranberry sauce by Fortnite, which I think is great. That means that the threads are not from the queer stitching community, but the pattern and the fabric is, which is good. I wanted to keep it that way. There it is. So I will definitely be stitching on this more this month during Pride Month. Okay, let me set these aside, and then we're talking plans, and then we're going to call it a day. I'm going to go back to doing some actual stitching after editing this video. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, let us talk plans. June is filling up the plans. The WIPGO numbers are out. So what I'd like to do is try to get a page finish on my 2 projects for that. It's the bookcase, and then it's an acorns piece by Owl Forest. So I'm going to try for a page finish on both of those just because I have more stitching time this month since I'm off. And then I don't have that acorns piece to show you, but you'll see it. I'll show you next month. And it was in my video from 2 months ago, I think was the last time it was called, in March. I think in March. Okay, but the big thing I'm going to do is join in with hashtag Stitch for Pride, which Dee and Kari are organizing. And as someone who is also a teacher, planning educational materials takes a long time. It's a creative process. It takes a lot of thought. So don't underestimate the time that it has taken them to put these materials together. I think the thinking time that teachers take to prepare thoughtful lessons is not really something that's valued. I don't know about in Canada, but in the US, it's definitely not valued. For example, we are given very little actual planning time. A lot of that takes place in our personal time, and it shouldn't be. I wish planning time was more valued because being creative and creating and being thoughtful about the materials you create for educational purposes is a time-consuming process. So big thank yous to Dee and Kari for putting in the time to do that for us. You probably already know by now because it's been out, and I think Dee just came out with their video about it too. So there's a whole calendar of daily educational pieces, action pieces, and then stitching themes. So what I've tried to do for that is I'm going to try to focus on a few pieces and try to fit these pieces into those themes. Because what I've learned, a year will make a big difference. What I've learned is that as part of Pride stitching or Pride anything this month, it's really important to highlight and give voice to actual queer members of the community instead of just buying stuff that's rainbows but not produced by queer people. Do you know what I mean? So I will definitely stitch on Miriam's piece. I'm holding it upside down. And you can find all of these vendors and designers and people are in, if you go to Dee's 20 Stitches, which I will link in the big list of names below, in their Instagram profile, they have a link, and probably now in their Flosstube also, because that just came out yesterday maybe. They've got a huge resource of designers, all different kinds of creators and vendors in the cross stitch community who are queer, so that you can support them during this month. So Miriam's on that list. And you know what else you can also check out is the Diversity in Stitching website, which just went live this month. So a group of wonderful friends and stitchers created that. And if you want to just diversify whose patterns you're stitching and which floss tubers you're following, that's a great place to start. It's diversityinstitching.com. And then, of course, for Pride Month, you're going to check out Dee's 20 Stitches for the resources on that. So Miriam, definitely going to stitch on Miriam's patterns for that. Definitely going to come back to this. What is the pattern actually called? Move Forward in Love is the pattern on this Fortnite fabrics. Definitely going to come back to that. And then, of course, definitely going to stitch on Dee and Kari's pattern. So coming back to Trans Pride Tapestry and hoping to, I've been trying to work on the outlines. This is a really great pattern for outlines. And then eventually you just have only fill-in left to do. So I'm going to chip away at the outlines on that. I don't have it here, but I've never tried stitching anything for hashtag dark 13 stitching, but I was thinking maybe for the 13th of June, I could take out Hex Hotel by Dee's 20 Stitches and put in a little bit on that. And then I do have just one piece that's rainbow stitching, but not from someone from a queer stitcher designer. So I won't show that right now because that, let's amplify queer voices right now. So I'm super excited to try those prompts. I think the prompts are going to be amazing because there's a lot I don't know. So I'm still learning. There's a lot that I think I'm going to be corrected on and called out on, which is okay. Getting called out on stuff is okay. It means that you didn't understand something, but you're on the path to learning. So that's okay. Even I think sometimes when we get called out for stuff, it makes us uncomfortable, right? So then we can either sit with that discomfort, like whatever it is, recognize it for what it is. Are you embarrassed? Do you feel shameful? What feelings are you sitting with when someone calls you out on something? And then think about how to make that better. I think people kind of lash out. They feel that embarrassment or shame, and then they lash out instead of just sitting with those feelings for a little bit. So we're probably going to get called out on a lot of stuff, our unawareness on a lot of things, or our actions that we think we're doing in allyship and maybe aren't the best way to do it. Let's just sit with those feelings a little bit and figure things out. And then I think the action steps will be really interesting. And the stitch themes will be fun too. I'm excited about the whole thing. I can't wait to join in on that. I'm trying to decide, I don't know, maybe I might need your help in deciding this. I'm like 90% of the way there. So last June, I did a fundraiser for a local, I wanted to support a local organization that supports trans people especially, but BIPOC queer people. And that's Brave Space Alliance. They're an organization here in the Chicagoland area, and they specifically support our queer friends and family who are people of color. And so we did an awesome, you helped me last year. We raised $1,000 for them. And so I checked in with them this year because I wasn't sure, should I do another fundraiser for them? I'd like to continue to support somebody local who's also supporting people of color for Pride Month. And so they were really wonderful. I checked in and I just asked, like, what are some upcoming projects you're doing? I'm thinking of doing this fundraiser again, and I want to see, like, what will the impact be, if we do this? And I'm actually going to read you from the response I got from them. Sorry, I thought I had it pulled up. I don't. Okay. So my question was, what do the funds go to? Because last year what they said was any fundraiser funds go to like a general operating budget. And then as projects come along, they take money from that budget and they fund those projects. So I had asked, well, do you have your report from last year, like a financial report or something, so that we could see where the funds actually went to? They're still drafting that report and it's coming out, but they did say the following. While funds raised generally still go to our general operating fund, some specific causes that these funds will be directed towards include our community pantry, our trans relief / funeral fund. That funeral fund goes towards trans people who are murdered and who don't have a family connection, like they're alone. They don't have a family connection. So this organization helps them to have a proper burial, with dignity. They have gender affirming rooms at their location. And then they all are also starting the Lucy Hicks Anderson housing program, which is going to be the first intermediate term housing program in Illinois, specifically dedicated to Black trans women. So that all sounds fantastic. Whatever supports we can give to the community, I think that's great. So what I'm saying is I think we're going to get this fundraiser going. So I need your help. I don't have any of them. I haven't set it up yet. So I don't have any of the materials or information ready yet. I will post it on Instagram once it's ready. And then I will also be on the lookout in my description below, because once I get my donation links and everything ready, I will update the text description below with that information. But what I need help from you with is I want to see if it can really be like a community effort to give, and check with D first, because I haven't looked through all their prompts yet to see if they are also doing fundraisers or how that fit. Like, listen to them first and then come, do this kind of thing. I would like to find, so I'm playing around with a hashtag. Okay. And the hashtag would be 2022 Crafters for Equality, because I do a lot of craftivism fundraisers. And my ultimate goal, what I envision is I would love to get to a place where whenever I do a fundraiser, could we collectively come together? Like, could I actually find 2022 crafters who could each donate just $1 to the cause? I know some people will donate more, right? But instead of having very few people donate more money, is there a way that we could spread this out across the community and get more people supporting causes? Does that make sense? So I don't know 2022 like people in my general life. So for 2022 crafters, I don't know 2022 crafters. I think there are probably like between 150 and 200 of you who regularly watch my videos. And I know a good number of you tend to donate. Thank you so much for every fundraiser I do for a cause, you're there, and I appreciate you for that. I'm wondering if any of you, who I know some of you have larger followings, definitely on Flosstube and sometimes on Instagram too, can you spread the information out and try to get a greater variety of people to donate, even if it's just $1 or a smaller amount? That's where I need your help. So be on the lookout for updates down in the description below. And then also on Instagram, I'll post something where you can just kind of screenshot and share. But I would love to, it's not just, I'm very appreciative of the people who donate, but it's, instead of having a small handful of people who care about the cause, let's try to get lots of people to care and contribute. Does that make sense? So I think my hashtag is going to be 2022 Crafters for Equality. I think that's what I'm going with. I'm kind of thinking this through right now. I haven't set it up yet. So is that all my plans? I have one last plan I'm going to tell you about. I started a really great documentary that I think if you're a stitcher, you will love it. You will find this so fascinating. It's called Stitching Palestine, and I will link to it below. It's an independently made film. And in order to view it, you have to give a donation to Stitching Palestine to help with so much. There's so much going on. Humanitarian aid that needs to go to Palestine. So I started watching this documentary this month, and I had intended to continue stitching on my freebie by Jordan Nasser, which is called Let's Touch Trees. Okay, so back all this up. This month was a really tough month for my Palestinian students. We have a lot of Palestinian students at my school. And one day, I'm embarrassed, I didn't know this until they told me about it. One day they came to school, it was noticeable that they were all wearing their scarf. There was a beautiful print scarf, like a white print scarf with black motifs on it that a lot of Palestinian students and people wear. They're pro-Palestine tees, traditional garments. There was an influx of all of this Palestinian textile being worn in the building. And so I thought, when I saw it, I thought, ooh, something's going on. It's either a holiday or something's happened. So I Googled in the news, and of course, there was a Palestinian journalist who was shot this month and killed. Prominent journalist. So that was devastating. And then it coincided with also a memorial event that happens every year related to forced migrations and things like that. So I had heard of the Stitching Palestine film before, but reading more and more about this month, I try to read a lot about Palestine because I have so many students who are Palestinian. I have a really good colleague who's Palestinian too. Wonderful person. So I like to get informed about it and know, because I have students who talk to me about this stuff too. So last year I started stitching this free pattern called Let's Touch Trees, and it's by Jordan Nasser. So Tatrees is the Palestinian name for cross stitch. Cross stitch is a big part of Palestinian culture and has been for a long time. There are motifs that are very, very old. Motifs in Palestinian culture tend to be related to regions. So different regions of Palestine have different certain motifs. So a common thing to do with Palestinian tatrees, there are two kind of big pieces you can do. There are lots of different pieces, but one very common motif very common piece to do is a huge piece with all of the motifs representing the different regions of Palestine, like a sampler almost of the regions of Palestine. And then this is another common piece that's stitched. It's called a thobe. which is, or like a chest pattern. So it's a pattern, it'll have a box here and then it'll come down to a triangular point. It's the chest piece of a lot of garments that are Palestinian. So this one is a free pattern by Jordan Nasser. Jordan Nasser is a Palestinian American artist. He shows and works mostly in New York, and he uses tatrees and creates these enormous cross-stitched panels, like wall-sized cross-stitched panels with landscapes on them, because a lot of issues related to Palestinian culture are related to land. They were forced away from their land. So he also created this freebie to share part of his culture with cross-stitchers. So my intention this month is to finish that Stitching Palestine documentary. That documentary is so good. It's interviews with women, Palestinian women, some of whom are still living there, some of whom have moved away. Their families were forced to leave. And they're all telling their story, their family stories, but they're all coming together by using stitching. So a big kind of overarching theme is how tatrees stitching has been a unifying force in bringing Palestinians together and representing their culture. It's a huge cultural unifier. It's something that brings everybody together, and it's like a symbol of resistance. So that is that documentary, if you want to understand, like, I talk a lot about culture and cross stitch and people who are not from a culture stitching another culture. That's kind of, I talk about that a lot. If you know me, I talk about that a lot. I think if you watch a film like that one and you're unclear as to why it's not okay sometimes to stitch motifs from other cultures, something like that is very eye-opening, because you see how tied in the history of a people is to the stitching. You will see gorgeous stitching in that video. By the way, there's beautiful examples of cross stitch in that video, and really like fantastic storytelling. If you like to, like, I don't know about you, but a lot of the Flosstubes that I love to listen to, I almost hardly even watch them. I love just listening to them. Like Catherine and Victoria, Neat and Not by the Sea, they even call their Flosstube a podcast. It's very podcasty to me. I love just listening to, I'm stitching on my work, but listening to them talk. So this film is kind of like that too, except that you do have to watch it because there's subtitles. So you're not just listening to it, you're watching it. But if you like hearing stories, I think you will love that film and you will be interested in hearing more about it. I will link the freebie below, and I'll link to the video, to the film as well, so you can check it out. If you watch it, would you let me know? Because I want to know what you think about it. That's true for anything. Like, I'm always linking, articles and videos and cultural resources. If you watch anything, would you let me know? Because I love to talk it over with people. And a lot of this stuff, like, that I share with you, I'll share with Steve, but I don't always have, like, I have a couple of friends who are interested in learning about cultural stuff, or just I can talk about anything with them. But my stitching community has really become that for me. Like, I've found people who share a lot of these common interests, and you talk about this stuff together. They're like my family. I don't talk about this stuff with them because they're not interested in it. So if you do happen to read, or if you find other interesting cultural stuff, like, message me with it. I love reading about anything. I love getting informed about everything. So, hey, we're at the end. Thank you for sticking around. This is probably a long one. I haven't even looked at how long it is yet, but thanks for sticking around. I'm going to see, I think some of you I'll get to meet in person next week at StitchCon. I am super anxious about StitchCon. I don't choose to do events like this usually. I'm excited to go with Sarah. I'm excited to do a trip with my stitchy friend, Sarah. And I think that will be amazing, but I'm genuinely very anxious. So if you go to StitchCon and you see me like sitting by myself at a table, I just might be doing some of that because I get very overwhelmed in like large social situations. I know that seems like contrary to actually attending an event like that. I'm pushing a new boundary for me by attending this thing. So please be patient with me. I'm hoping to connect with you while you're there, and I will tell you all about it when I come back at the end of next month. Okay, I will leave you there. Happy whatever season of the year it is, wherever you are. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you are able to enjoy some pride stitching too. I'm excited to see what everybody does with that. And don't forget to check back here with updates for the Brave Space Alliance fundraiser. Okay, that's it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. I'll see you soon.